Hey everyone, it's Dr. Frank Nguyen from Integrity Chiropractic. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up a computer workstation at home for comfort. For those of you who don't know me, I spent most of my past and youth being in front of a computer all day long. And now I happen to help people with problems such as neck pain and low back pain from being in front of a computer all day long. And so what I want to do today is I'm coming back with the perspective of being someone who's been in front of the computer and as someone who treats these issues all day, and show you what I would set up differently and how I would set things up for maximum comfort. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I've time indexed everything for you down below if you want to skip around and find what's relevant for you, or you're welcome to stick around and watch the whole thing with me. Okay, before I talk about how to set up everything, I want to go over my equipment and the rationale behind it. That way you can have an informed decision about what's going to work better for you or what you might want to get. There's just some things you may have not thought about. And it's good to kind of think about some of these things before you get all your equipment, because you don't want to be kind of locked into a solution you may not necessarily like. So, what's our motivation for doing all this? Obviously we want to be comfortable, but usually, the thing that people are most after is, I want to have good posture at work. That's the biggest question that comes up with patients. How do I improve that? I always tell people there's basically 3 ways we can go about dealing with that. One, we can wear a device or some sort of brace to kind of help hold us or remind us to stay in that position. 2, we can do exercises to try to counter what our environment is doing to us. Or 3, we can hack our environment to try to make it better suit the posture we want to develop. I'm a big fan of the last option just because it makes more sense. I think our environment should be tailored to suit what our body's like, as opposed to us trying to force our body to our work environment. So we'll go ahead and talk about each one of these things I have here, and then we'll get to the setup. So first thing here, I want to talk about my desk. This is a pneumatic desk to let me stand up or sit down. I know standing has become very popular over these past few years, but if you're going to be in one position for too long, you're most likely going to get tired, whether it's sitting or standing. So it's nice to have that ability to go back and forth between the two. So the reason I picked this one is more for aesthetic reasons, but if I was going to get another desk again, I'd probably get an electronic one, because that'll let me raise and lower it quickly and easily. This one works pretty quick and it's fine, but just every time I want to unlock it, I have to push down a little bit to make it go up or down. That can be annoying for some people. There's also crank designs that you see out there as well. And that works just fine as well, but that might take a little longer to adjust, especially if you feel like you're somebody who wants to change positions more often. I'm only confined to the computer maybe 20 minutes tops at a time, so for me, I'm not finding myself changing position very often, but chances are if you're working at home, you're probably on the thing for several hours a day. So the next thing I'll talk about is the monitor and the monitor arm. So basically, whatever solution you pick for supporting your monitor, they have a wall-mounted one or a clamp design like this. You want to make sure that the monitor you get is VISA compliant. And that just basically means it has the 4 holes in the back of it that you can mount a mounting bracket to attach it to whatever solution you're using. Those monitors are pretty easy to come by now. They're pretty affordable as well. We'll get to the discussion in a moment a bit about the laptop positioning and whatnot, but I highly encourage you to get a separate monitor to be able to run a cable to help you get better posture and positioning as well. So for me, the reason why I went with this particular clamp design is because it will ride with the desk, and I think that's really important if you do feel like you're going to be changing positions a lot, because then whatever relationship you establish between this monitor height and your work or keyboard surface, it'll be maintained when you go up and down, and you don't have to fuss and readjust things. The good ones that you want to get is one that has multiple swivel points so you can bring it forward or back. Also having the ability to tilt up or down is really nice too. This one is a little bit more taller as well, and so that's nice, especially if you're a tall person. It just gives you more range to play with to kind of find that happy medium that we're gonna look into in a moment. So the next thing as well is the keyboard tray. This is kind of optional. You may or may not want this. Some people can get by just fine using their work surface. That will just change the adjustments a little bit, but having a keyboard tray is nice because this will give an opportunity for you to help keep your arms and shoulders down a little bit lower, so you're not having to raise as much. But it may not be an issue for you. I think for some people they may want to just have more surface area here to do any sort of paperwork or have any reading material. But this is totally up to you. So one thing to keep in mind though about the keyboard trays is there's different designs out there. My desk has a horizontal support beam going across, and so this particular keyboard tray I'm using has little legs that kind of mount in offset from that, so I'm able to attach it to it. Many of the designs that you see are basically a long plate that you have to screw right into the desk. So that's where it's important to think about what desk you're getting and what keyboard tray will be compatible with it as well. So for this video, I'm not going to talk about chairs, and the reason for that is because chairs can be really subjective for some people as far as comfort level. I will just say that if you're going to have a chair and you're going to be working for many hours, it's good to have one with decent back support, because having that can help basically offload a little bit of pressure to your low back, because you can lean up against it a little bit. And I think having some ability to tilt and adjust can be helpful as well for some people. But oftentimes, a well-supported dinner chair can be just perfectly fine for someone as well. Okay, so the first thing we'll talk about is setting up the chair height. Most chairs, comfortable range is between 16 to 20 inches. That's usually the standard. If you found a dinner chair that you already like, well, there's nothing for you to adjust, so you can just skip this section here. But if you're using an adjustable chair, usually a good rule to have is you want your thighs to be parallel to the ground as much as possible. You could be higher or lower, give or take, but the key thing is you don't want it to be too high, because that will push up into the back of your hamstring, and that can cause some circulation or nerve compression issues. So if you're going to be sitting for a long time, that won't feel comfortable, obviously. If you're shorter, this is where a footstool can help elevate your feet to kind of counter any of that pressure if you're not able to get your feet flat on the ground. So that's pretty straightforward. So now I'm going to talk about work surface height relative to the ground. So most ergonomic recommendations have between 27 to 30 inches. It's obviously going to be different depending on how tall you are as well. But my preference is to have the work surface as low as possible. Generally, most people are going to be using their keyboard on this work surface. And so the reason why I want to have it lower is so I don't have to elevate my shoulders when I'm typing. Some research studies have shown that just the act of us sitting in front of the computer is enough to kind of cause these muscles to wind up, either from the concentration or possibly the stress. And some people do happen to carry stress in these muscles, and so with them being so prone to overactivation, why make them more tight than they already are? And so this is where I think it's nice to have the keyboard lower to kind of check some of that shoulder elevation. If you want to, this is where a keyboard tray can help you accomplish that and bring it even lower, basically by being a couple inches below your work surface height. And it also frees up this area for you to do any sort of paperwork or documents that you can have laid out. One thing about the keyboard tray that is nice is that it slides out to you, so you don't have to reach out as far with your shoulders. Generally the elbow bend, it's recommended that we have between 90 degrees to 120 degrees, but having a keyboard tray can kind of bring that a little bit closer. For some people that might not be as much of an issue, but having your shoulder flexed forward like this can generate some tension in the front there. Recently I did a review on an ergonomic keyboard that helps to kind of keep your shoulders a little bit square and open, as well as your wrists and forearms a little bit more straight. But for you, that may not be a problem, but it's something that you may want to consider. If you want to check out that keyboard, I'll go ahead and put that card at the bottom so that you can go over and check that video out. I don't like to give specific numbers, so I'll say try to find a position that's comfortable for your shoulders, but not so low that you feel it's really awkward to type. Okay, so now that we talked about the seat height and the desk and keyboard surface height, let's talk about the monitor height. I think for most people, this is going to be where the money is and where they're going to see the biggest impact to how they feel. So to kick that discussion off, I'm going to put up 3 pictures really quick, and then I'm going to go through each one of them and talk you through what's going on. So first picture that you see here, I think this is a reality that most of us live in today if we're working on a computer. Either we're on a laptop or we're on an all-in-one computer or some monitor at home that just doesn't come up high enough. So if you look at this, look how it's doing on my posture. My head is tilted forward. That's going to make the muscles in the back of my head have to work harder to support that heavy weight from going forward. My upper back is rounded, and so that's going to make it so it's harder for me to use my diaphragm and expand my rib cage to breathe. So that might make me sniff the air, and that can contribute to some discomfort in the base of the neck. It also kind of ingrains this postural distortion, which many people have, where they lose that thoracic upper back mobility and they can't stand up or extend backwards anymore. And also, this makes me slump a little bit in the seat, which is, in the past has always been correlated with some degree of back pain. Not always, but there's a little bit of a relationship there. So this is why I think if you have a laptop, I really encourage you to get a separate monitor for it, especially if you're going to be doing this for a long time, that you can basically help get out of this position. And so we go over here to the second picture. This is more typical of what you'll be asked to do for the usual ergonomic recommendations. In this position, my eye is about at the level of the top of the monitor. But in this position, my posture definitely has improved over the first one. My upper back is not as rounded. My head is obviously not as forward. But I still have a little bit of a gaze downward towards the monitor. And so, even though this is better, I think long term, what inevitably happens for a lot of people after they've been working for several hours or they're really, really into what they're doing, is they start leaning more forward and start crouching forward. And so that postural distortion from that first setup can kind of rear its ugly head again. And so for this reason, I actually prefer this last picture here. This is the setup that I generally try to have. And so what I'm doing is I'm forcing my gaze at the center of the monitor. And so why am I doing that? I tell people, think about when you have a conversation with somebody, or think about when you're walking and looking at the horizon. Most of the time you're not slumped over looking down at the ground. And that's the reason why I never have any patients come into my clinic complaining of neck and upper back pain when they're walking around or having a conversation with somebody. So this is where I say try to hack your environment to better suit your body. So if you look at this picture, you can see that my upper back is much more straight. My head is also not tilted forward. And it also encourages me to not slump as much in my low back and kind of help maintain a little bit of that lordosis, that inner curve that's there. And so I think, long term, this is going to be a better position for you. It's going to be a little bit tiring for some people, but I think, as far as trying to maintain better posture, this is going to be easier for you to stay in good posture, because if you try to slump forward in this position, you're not going to be able to see the monitor anymore. And so this is a good way to kind of subconsciously help you achieve what you're looking for. And if you're working with another chiropractor or you're working with a physical therapist, having a good environment like this only can help build on what they're doing with you. So if you follow my recommendations for the setup in the sitting position, now if you want to transition to standing, you'll notice that all the relationships that you've established between the work surface height and the monitor will stay with you. So you just only have to bring your monitor back up to where your eye level meets the middle of the screen. And so this is where, for some people, the keyboard tray can be a nice option if you're going to find yourself wanting to stand more. And that's because it just kind of helps keep the keyboard a little bit lower, so you don't have to elevate the shoulder as much to type. Although it may not be a big problem for some people, but definitely having this is nice. And then this is also where having the monitor that can articulate with multiple hinges is nice, because then if you're using a keyboard that slides out, you can bring it towards you so you don't find yourself leaning in as well. So thanks for watching along. If you found this useful, I'd love to hear your comments. Feel free to leave it down below. Be sure to subscribe or like to our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.